is Brittany Sawinski, and I'm a product marketing manager for Loom. I'm excited to be the moderator for today's fireside chat with JR from Datasite. I want to start with a quick question for you all, something to think about throughout today's session. When was the last time you learned something or got unstuck on a problem you were trying to solve by watching a video? Maybe you were assembling a piece of furniture. Perhaps you were trying to figure out a new gadget, and you probably went to YouTube and searched for it. Think of that aha moment you had when you were able to get yourself unstuck. Now I want you to think about the last time you were able to get unstuck at work. And maybe instead of searching on YouTube, you asked Rovo. Well, that's a Loom video. Imagine if you could bring this power into your workplace every day. And that's going to be what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at how Datasite, a strategic cloud-first Atlassian customer, rolled out Atlassian's Teamwork Collection. When JR and I started talking about this session, he said something that I want to share with you, which is, I want to pay it forward and show customers who are where we were a year ago, how it's done. How do you make a rollout like this happen? So Datasite has been using the Teamwork Collection since earlier this year. They have 1,000 licenses on top of their existing strategy collection. Like many of us, they were facing the classic challenges: fragmented tools, scattered data, and just way too many meetings. But here's where it gets really exciting. In just 5 months, Datasite was able to reduce over 4,000 meetings. They saved $500,000 in meeting time, simply by rethinking how work gets done. At the heart of this transformation is JR Harrell, Executive Vice President of Product Operations and Enablement at Datasite. He brings a unique blend of operational rigor and design thinking, which you'll hear a little bit more today, and a relentless focus to his team to make work better. He's led teams through massive shifts, and today he's here to share practical lessons from Datasite's strategic Loom launch. So with that, please join me in welcoming to the stage JR Harrell. Hi, JR.
Hey, Brittany.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Well, you guys are in for a treat today with JR. We have been chatting over the past couple of months, getting ready for this session. And JR, you have quite a diverse background. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about yourself and what have you been up to recently?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm JR Harrell, EVP of Product Operations and Enablement at Datasite. And I'll give you a little snapshot about my background. After high school, I served in the United States Army, and I was a tank operator. And yep, it's the kind of tank that you think of, that you see in the movies with the tread on it and the big gun on the top. And as a recent high school grad, I thought that was pretty amazing to be in that position, to be able to do that and meet people from all over the world in the military. After the military, I earned a bachelor's degree in journalism at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, go Tar Heels. And after that, I worked at IBM, and I served a decade there working for clients like General Motors. So you know, when you go and configure a vehicle online, we ran all that software for GM. And then one day, I remember while I was at IBM, I watched Steve Jobs introduce the iPhone, and I thought to myself, man, this is the future. So I took a year-long leave of absence from IBM, and I taught myself user experience design, and I did that for about 7 years. And I worked for startups like Y Combinator, which was founded by Paul Graham of Yahoo. And then after that, I started at Datasite and worked my way up from senior designer to senior vice president of design for UX. and now I'm currently the EVP of Product Operations and Enablement.
So with such a diverse background, how would you say this has shaped who you are as a leader?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that working in the Army, it really helped me hone my attention to detail. And then at IBM, it really instilled discipline in how I approach things. They really kind of have a suffer no fools approach to IT there, I think. And then with my current role as EVP of Product Operations, it really allowed me to bring all that together.
Well, JR, I personally would like to hear at least one story from your tank operator days. Could you share one?
Yes, we were doing desert warfare training in the Mojave Desert in an area called the Box. And it's literally just this big expanse of land where you play war games, where you are doing laser tag with military vehicles. And I'll just never forget, it was beautiful out there. It was like at night you could see the stars, and it was quite the experience.
So pretty high stakes environment to be leading in.
Yeah.
And from the military world to the world of tech, it's clear you have a unique perspective on what it takes to get people working together towards a common goal. Can you tell us all a bit more about Datasite? What's your core business, and why is collaboration so important for your teams?
Yep, Datasite powers mergers and acquisition across the end-to-end life cycle. So for those of you who may not be familiar with M&A, think about the keynote speech this morning by Mike, where he talked about how Atlassian has acquired the browser company and DX. Our company, Datasite, helps facilitate those transactions on an ultra-secure platform where the buyer and the seller and their advisors exchange documents.
And if we were to say rewind to last year at Datasite, what did a day in the life look like before you guys started using Loom?
I was constantly staring down the barrel of like double and triple book time slots. And here's the thing, I tried to do ruthless prioritization of all those things, but when I took a step back and looked at them, one of those things were just as important as the other. And so I knew that what I needed was a different approach. And what dawned on me is that I needed a way to figure out how to time shift.
Mm-hmm. Well, we want to know, are you guys experiencing this pain too? Is your calendar full of meetings? Can we see a show of hands if you have too many meetings on your calendar? You're probably having to miss a couple while you're here, I imagine. Well, we all know that feeling, to look at our calendar in the morning and be like, oh shoot, when am I going to get my actual work done for the day? You try to shift things around, but it doesn't actually solve the issue. When you found out this was a company-wide issue and you asked around your org and found out it's not just you, when did you realize you needed not just another tool, you needed, in fact, a new way of working?
Yeah, so I just started doing a lot of research on the problem, and I found, for example, a study by MIT Sloan School of Management that knowledge workers spend 85% of their time in meetings, even though the managers who were interviewed in this study, they said that 71% of them said meetings are just kind of like ineffective. They're an inefficient way to operate. And so I came upon actually the video from last year's Europe team meeting, and I learned about Loom, and I thought maybe this could help. And so I started looking into it.
And as a leader, how did you make that first step and start introducing this idea at your broader organization at Datasite?
So essentially at Datasite, I'm always like the first person to bring in new software. Like I brought in Slack, I brought in whiteboarding tools, I brought in a lot of different tools, in particular for the pandemic, to be able to do asynchronous communication. And basically one day after we had signed up for the TWC for Loom, I met with Lakshmi, who is our essentially our CSM, and she got us started down the path of success.
Well, JR has a reputation at Datasite. They say, oh no, here comes JR again, bringing in another tool. Because when you bring in a tool, they go viral. So you got leadership buy-in and approval. You defined your clear business objectives around giving people time back in their day and reducing meetings. And then what did you do next?
So what did I do next? Basically, I followed an approach called Crossing the Chasm, which you may not be familiar with it. It is a marketing book that essentially has a framework for rolling out and getting adoption on disruptive tools. And I took this approach for reaching out to people who are innovators and early adopters to get them to adopt this software. But first, we put in a platform called Microsoft Access packages, so that if you want to get access to Loom, you just push a button and within a few minutes you get a license.
From my previous experience, before I was in product marketing, I was leading onboarding at Loom, and this was always one of the most important things we worked on with our customers, was lowering that barrier to entry, putting easy access steps in place. So that's spot on that you started with that. And tell us about the shotgun approach that you took. Who did you start just sending Looms to?
Yeah, so the early adopters, there are folks who will use software just for the sake of using software. They're called the innovators, actually, and they're willing to deal with some of the hiccups that you might have initially when you're starting to roll something out, whether it's the access packages that I mentioned. And they're kind of like the people who always have the new iPhone, or you'll hear them talking about AI. And you just kind of have to know who's who in the zoo to go after these folks. And if you're not sure who those folks are, like if you're new to an environment, just go on Slack and search for like new iPhone or AI or ChatGPT, and those folks are usually your early, your innovators. And then from there, you have your visionaries. They're doing something with new tech just because they're interested in it. They want to learn what the advantages might be. And essentially, what's really interesting, you'll see across the bottom the percentages. This is really nice because you can take a mathematical approach towards awareness and adoption. So for example, with us, we knew the pool of potential users that we had, and we were able to match up our license count. Remember I mentioned the access packages? We were able to bounce the access package count against our percentage here, so that we knew how we were doing along this continuum. And then in fact, once we reached that first green peak, we knew that we had sort of plateaued and that we needed to take the next step with Lakshmi to get to the crossing the chasm, where this is where a lot of products fail and a lot of rollouts fail, is they get stuck in the chasm and they just can't make it across.
From my work in onboarding as well, change management, of course, is a huge part of it. It's a new way of communicating, a new way of working, and it is so critical to find those internal influencers at your org and just start having them shotgunning Looms, recording them, canceling a meeting, embedding them into your Confluence pages, and the more you socialize them like you did, you're able to get to this point. But what happens when you get to this chasm? How can we avoid falling in, and how can we move forward to our pragmatists?
Yes, so once you've sort of reached the plateau with those first two groups, and the way that we did that again was this shotgun approach, and I would actually send people Loom videos, like if it's an engineer, here's how you might use it for engineering. If you're in marketing, here's how you might use it for marketing. And that shotgun approach really worked because Loom is so easy to use. People can just kind of watch a Loom and understand how to use Loom. But to answer your question, when we reach this plateau, this is when we got Lakshmi in. And she's our CSM for Loom, and she is amazing. And she did live sessions for us, of which we would have a couple hundred people attend. And as you can see from the analytics, it looks like a stair step. And you can literally, Brittany, you helped me do this, you can map up the training dates to the data. So in other words, when we had live training, you can see it go up a dog leg. Another live training, go up a dog leg. And the way that we did the live training was beginner and advanced. And it was remarkable how many people returned for the advanced Loom, that I think we have a use case in here that we'll talk about in a minute.
I've seen this reflected in my own onboarding of customers as well. Once you make the change management visible to people, so they understand what is Loom, maybe what's a use case for my role in marketing or in engineering, and then you do a live training like this, Loom is such a delightful tool. There's a clear value for everyone at the org for their specific use case, and this really just helps to lock it in. So I highly encourage everyone, connect with your Atlassian CSM, ask for a Loom 101 training. It literally will spike up your usage, and we're happy to come in and share all about Loom. So let's talk about people who might already be heavy Jira users and they're starting to learn a little more about Loom. What advice do you have for Jira users that want to roll out Loom at their organization?
Yes, so when you think about how Jira tickets are written, the way the UI is laid out is very nice because it accommodates for a lot of information. But when you look on the left-hand side, there's the description field, and that's where a lot of content goes. And even the best author of Jira tickets, they might leave things out because it's very nuanced. And or when you think about flat text, it's very one-dimensional. What we started doing that helped us to go viral, I think, within the engineering community was to embed Loom videos directly in the Jira ticket, because that way you can very clearly see what the problem is or what the opportunity is. A lot of people are very visual learners, but what's nice about Loom is it's also for auditory learners. So the more, what I learned in UX is the more of the 5 senses that you can get involved, the more that people uptake information and the more that they get out of it. And so we also felt like by offering a more rich, immersive experience, it would yield better results in fixing the bugs and carrying out the tickets. And this just started to happen normally, organically, but after we did the Lakshmi training, we noticed a big uptick in it.
Well, we have a workflow to show on the screen, and JR, you said this is one of your favorite workflows with Jira and Loom. Why don't you tell us what's happening here?
Yeah, maybe I can give you a quick background story on how we got into this. So one of our product marketing folks, let me back up. Within our platform, we have an apps tab, almost like in the App Store or like your marketplace, like the Atlassian marketplace. And she wanted to do a product marketing piece on an app that was in the apps tab, and it had a bug. And she had a relationship with her engineer, and she needed to put this in writing, but she was in a hurry. And so instead of writing up a bug ticket, she recorded a Loom. And so what you're able to do with this workflow, and go to the beginning. So you see the problem, you record the Loom, you do create. Loom understands it's a bug report, which is magic to me. And then it will literally go through and create the ticket. Then we also have an agent that we run, you'll see it here on the right-hand side, that goes through and checks the ticket to make sure that it meets our high standards for bug creation tickets. And so when you think about it and you add up that workflow, you're saving up to like 30 minutes because for one, you can talk twice as fast as you can type. And then you don't have to type, you just talk through it. You don't have to open up a ticket, and then you don't have to check the ticket. Like 90% of this is automated for you.
And we have some very cool new releases that are just being announced at the conference with our bug reporting workflow. So come by the Loom booth if you haven't seen them yet. But what this allows you to do is record a Loom as maybe a non-technical user, just capturing something that you're seeing that looks like a bug or isn't working for you on your screen. You can share it then with your eng team or your support team, and they, as a viewer, are going to have this create tab, a generate tab, and they'll be able to create a bug report in Jira right from the Loom. So we're really reducing the amount of time to troubleshoot what's going on and actually can get that bug looked at and resolved.
And likely create higher quality tickets, which in turn we hope will yield higher quality outcomes.
We're going to start capturing the console logs as well and attaching them to the bug reports, which is very cool. Well, let's switch gears and talk now a little bit about Confluence, which we all know and love. What advice do you have for teams who are using Confluence really well? Where should they get started with using Loom?
Yeah, we use Loom heavily to augment our Confluence documentation because, like I mentioned, it's a richer experience. You don't have to type as much. And additionally, whenever you add Loom videos to Confluence, and a lot of folks might not know this is kind of like a pro tip, Loom creates a transcript that is also searchable by Rovo. So it gets added to the teamwork graph. So that makes it easier to find things. What's another pro tip that I have? Essentially, another thing that it helps to add content for is for Rovo searching, where we have even started to use Loom for team charters. And so you're able to find things more easily, I think, with Loom. And yeah, those are kind of like some of my pro tips.
I use Loom and Confluence the same way, and I really like to create scalable material. So I know that every time I record a Loom, if I'm going to record how to do something for a customer or for a new hire perhaps, I'll share that in my team space so it's visible to everyone at my org. And now if somebody asks Rovo a question, it will pop up my Loom as the source of truth for that answer. So it's great to have your wisdom and content starting to go into the teamwork graph. JR, tell us about your favorite workflow with Loom and Confluence using automated meeting notes.
So we have a monthly business review. And y'all, we used to have 125 people attend that meeting. Now we have a select handful of leaders, maybe like 15, and we record the entire Loom video, and then we capture the recap, and then we run it through Rovo, and it essentially helps us capture the most germane topics. Our head of product then records like a 15-minute condensed version of that 2-hour meeting. Think about the time and cost savings there. You're saving all the time that those folks were using for the meeting. They don't have to even watch the whole meeting. They use 15 minutes of the meeting essentially. And you can do the napkin math there. You've got 115 fewer people times 2 hours at $80 a person, essentially. Just rough napkin math. And I think they get more out of it because they're also not using their time to be on that 2-hour call where not everything was germane to them, and they're able to focus on everything from writing code to planning marketing campaigns to designing the next great product for our customers.
And who's actually paying attention on a 2-hour meeting? They're probably doing those tasks anyways, right?
Yeah, you see folks with their cameras off. Then this way, we also get analytics in Loom to see who's watched it and who's engaged. You just kind of don't get those analytics on a Teams call or
For sure.
a Zoom call.
Well, we have another little visual to play for you guys here. This is our Loom AI for Meetings and our automated meeting notes. Has anyone here tried Loom AI for Meetings? Show of hands. Okay. This is something you're definitely going to want to turn on when you get home. It sends a Loom recorder to your meeting. You're going to get an instant recap and summary sent to your email. The knowledge from the meeting is now going to be part of the teamwork graph if you have permission to this meeting. And what I really love about this, it's called the Meeting Insights Rovo skill. So after team this week, when I get home, I'm gonna ask Rovo, catch me up on all the meetings I missed while I was out at Team 25. It's gonna give me a brief AI-generated summary of all of those meetings. I can ask specific questions if I wanna dig in more. And then I can watch those meetings. I typically watch them in 2x speed, so watch your meetings and fast forward.
That's another great tip.
Are you going to use that Rovo skill when you get home?
Yes.
Yes. Are you guys going to use that Rovo skill when you get home? Yes. All right. So JR, you guys are just crushing it with all of our Atlassian apps and the Atlassian platform. And you have 11 teams today using the strategy collection and the teamwork collection, plus Rovo, of course. How would you describe what's changed at Datasite and what does that impact look like?
Yeah, and just to back up a little bit there, when we say we have 11 teams using Loom, that's the majority of the teams. And it's been really impactful in the sense of, I feel like it's improved communication between those 11 different teams that maybe you would have waited for a meeting to communicate something before, whereas now it's, even if it's just a 3-minute Loom, it goes so far in keeping those channels going and having that ongoing communication. But when you add up all those Looms, it's pretty eye-popping. So we started using Loom in April timeframe, and you're looking at 4,050 meetings that we've all set. And again, when you do the napkin math on that, that's $500,000. And then thanks to some data insights from yourself and Lakshmi, we also found out that we're gold star Loom recorders in the sense of 29% of our users record Looms, 30% is rare air from what I understand. So, but the real value is in the network effect and how things get shared. Like I'll make a Loom and I'll notice that it just gets passed around and creates like this positive chain reaction. And I've also noticed Loom has become like a verb where people will literally say, I'll just Loom you that in a bit.
Can I go back to a point you made, JR, because I have a question for you. So you mentioned that you have gold star territory recorders, which is 30%. If you can get 30% of your recorders recording every single month, that's a pretty high percentage. But there's a ton of value in Loom for viewers as well. So can you talk a bit about maybe the folks at Datasite who don't want to record themselves on camera, how do they get value out of Loom?
Yeah, you don't have to show your face to get value out of Loom. It's like I mentioned, you're already getting more rich, like high bandwidth output through a video than you are just an email alone. So I tell people, if you don't want to turn your camera on, that's fine. Just send me a Loom anyway. And a lot of these folks, it's just about using it. The more they use it, the more likely they are ultimately to turn their camera on.
And they still get to benefit from missing the meetings, not taking their meeting notes, and viewing the Looms and having that rich data as part of the teamwork graph.
Yeah, you bet.
JR, you mentioned you are going on a trip soon to Aspen. How are you going to be using the teamwork collection on your trip?
Yes, so my wife and I, we live in Colorado, and we'd love to visit Aspen. And one thing in particular we'd like to do is cycle. And so, I don't know about you, but just because you're out of office doesn't mean that the work stops. And so Loom is a way for me to do asynchronous work, where before I leave for the drive in the morning, I can hit 3 or 4 people up and say, hey, if you want to work on this week and make traction on it, send me a Loom. Then when I get to the hotel, I watch 1 or 2 of them, maybe reply back with a Loom, go for a bike ride. I've got essentially like a Loom thread going on so that I'm able to work asynchronously. It's kind of the best of both worlds in that regard. I get to stay out of the doghouse with my wife, and I get to stay in good graces with my boss.
So you're moving forward at work while you're moving forward on your cycle.
That's right.
That's right. Well, aside from all of these benefits you've already shared, what's been the most surprising thing you've seen change at Datasite?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, you have to take a step back at everything and take a look at it. And what I've noticed is we have built what I call time empathy at Datasite, where the way that calendaring works, and we talked about this, it's the same way that it's worked since like the 1950s, where I would just grab an hour of Brittany's time at 11 o'clock in the morning. I have no idea what you're working on. You might have a really important presentation. You might be in a flow state. And so I just grab the time. But with Loom, it's made me think, do I really need that hour or 30 minutes of Brittany's time? And then also, what is it that I really want to talk to her about? What is it that I really want to get out of the conversation? And I found that it helps me to sharpen my pencil a lot in what I'm asking of her, and what we want to talk about, and what we want the outcomes to be. And to me, that's very fascinating.
I've found that as well through using Loom, and I think twice before scheduling a meeting of, is this meeting just for me? Am I the only one benefiting, or is the person I'm inviting benefiting as well? And if it is a one-way benefit, I take it upon myself to record a Loom, let that person go on with their flow state. I liked in the keynote this morning how we heard developer joy. I don't want to disrupt the developer joy by scheduling a meeting that could have been a Loom.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for such an honest look, JR, at the changes that have taken place at Datasite. I know everyone here really appreciates your candor and leadership. Let's give JR a round of applause.